Alright everyone, normally the legacy media gets flack from me for putting out blatantly false articles, but sometimes there's just one that's goddamn hilarious. Joe Biden, of course, is pushing 80. He's like Bernie Sanders' age. He's had aneurysms before, and he's kind of obviously got cognitive difficulties. They claim it's a conspiracy theory to claim this. I refute that. I challenge the notion that looking at someone who many times has difficulty stringing a sentence together, he's of that age, he forgets what year it is, what state he's in. At some point you gotta ask that brutally honest question, is he maybe fucking losing his marbles? I think he is, quite clearly. Early stage losing of the marbles, as opposed to Bernie Sanders, who blew a gasket back in the 1970s, became a fanatic, but at least he's still mentally coherent. He's still with it. He's older than Biden is, and it's actually funny. But The Atlantic had an article basically begging Joe Biden not to die on the campaign trail. And I'm not even kidding, like, it's not an exaggeration. Link in the description, archived, of course, by the way. Always use archive.today, or one of its permutations. It switches its own URL regularly, now probably because of censorship, or the Wayback Machine. Never, ever, ever spread news articles without archiving them first. This robs them of clickbait ad revenue, and it's a wonderful thing. It also pisses them off. That's why they've complained about archival services before. Also keeps them from selectively and silently editing their articles and getting away with it. It's a wonderful, wonderful service. I'm not exaggerating. Look at it, though. Look at the title here. Essentially, the insinuation is, well, Joe, you'll be nominee, and don't worry, Trump, you'll beat him easily, but all you got to do is not die. Please become president. The idea, I guess, is also like, we'll have the first female president based on the fact that she was running mate. I really hate that idea, by the way. As someone who, I don't really care. If someone's a female and they're qualified, I'll consider voting for them. The reason I wouldn't vote for like a Kamala or an Elizabeth Warren isn't because of their genitals. It's because of their lack of qualifications and their constant lying and pandering. The identity politics shtick gets really old with me. It has nothing to do with their gender. But that being said, I would prefer... I know I'd probably get called like, I don't know, internalized misogyny or something because I've got a penis for saying this, but I would prefer that the first female president be actually elected as opposed to appointed to that position, generally speaking, because the sitting president died. Now, when you've got a person who would be 78 on election day and almost 79 when taking the oath of office, Joe Biden is, when you've got someone of that age, it is very, very likely in that high-stress environment with a person who's already had several brain aneurysms, it is likely they will not serve their full first term. Even if they survive, they might have to resign due to health reasons. He has an aneurysm or something. At what point of potentially dementia or sickness or something like that is a president forced to step down because they're no longer capable of functioning in their role in office, especially in the diplomatic sense? It's one thing to be able to sign or not sign a bill, from your hospital bed or something after your fourth stroke of the year. It's a little bit different to not be able to make any foreign visits, not be able to receive any dignitaries, not be able to perform any of the sort of public, ultimately just charismatic figurehead functions that a chief executive tends to serve. One of the president's big jobs is just to be a calm voice in time of national crisis. Well, can that calm voice, you see the president here from his hospital bed telling you it's going to be okay. I don't think that works. And then to have the first female president, which he's vowed that his running mate will be female, in the most awesome display of pandering ever, and I think it'll backfire on him spectacularly, but we'll see. No, I don't want that to happen, especially because it's likely to be like Kamala Harris or something. I think Kamala Harris would be number one on my list of likely choices, assuming it's someone who also ran. Number two would be a little better, which is Klobuchar. And I say a little bit better in a slightly tongue-in-cheek sense. I guess there's a distant possibility it's like a Gillibrand. Gillibrand would be okay, I suppose, more qualified than any of the others, but would add nothing to the ticket, I suppose. Elizabeth Warren, can you imagine how funny that would be? A lot of people think it'll be Hillary Clinton. I guarantee it won't. But the idea that the legacy media, and the Atlantic they're accredited and stuff. They're part of the corporate media complex. They've got severe Trump derangement syndrome. They're kind of a lamestream media outlet in general. The fact that they would, and this isn't even an opinion piece, the fact that they would essentially beg Joe Biden to keep himself from, I guess, getting knocked off by coronavirus or an aneurysm is hysterical. This is this is the presumptive nominee of a major political party. This isn't the new Whig Party representative or the leader of the new Bull Moose movement. This is the person who's going to be the standard bearer of the Democratic Party. I watched his fucking cyber town hall roundtable, whatever the fuck it was, last night. My first thought is it's hilarious how I can get 4 or 5 times more a live audience than a Democratic presidential candidate. He was pulling in about 3K at peak. So that's number. And this is Joe Biden's official YouTube handle. His official goddamn YouTube handle. There are like 2,500, 3,000 people watching. Dude, I can pull that in 10 minutes. That was my first thought. My second thought is this dude's all over the goddamn place. Saying weird shit, like the idea of a roundtable discussion went out the window. It wasn't a roundtable, it was basically a monologue. Joe Biden over and over again told these bizarre stories, invariably from 50 or more years ago, about all of these things usually happening, like with his family and stuff. Like one story, like the most recent was he wasn't allowed to drive. Of course, presidents and vice presidents, Secret Service won't allow him to get behind the wheel of a vehicle. I'm not sure exactly why, but they won't. Maybe assassination reasons or something. But of course, as vice president, he couldn't drive his cars. And he was all cut up about that. He's like, well, I got, what was it, a Corvette or a Ferrari or something. I can't drive it. I'm hoping not to be able to drive it for the next 8 years, God willing. And it was just sort of bizarre and came off oddly. But he, like, telling weird stories, like saying weird shit. Like I guess one story was that he saw 2 dudes kissing back in like the 50s or something when he was a little kid. And he looked at his dad and his dad said, oh, well, they're in love, son. Yes, I really believe that, Joe. I believe that your father was such a steely progressive back in the 1950s of all fucking times that he said it was okay. He had no problem with it. He was born in the fucking 1910s. He didn't see anything odd about the idea of homosexuality. Of course I believe you, Joe. You had such a progressive voice. See, the problem is, of course, his track record says a different story. The problem is, I think he was being very genuine at times about his support for gay rights. I don't think that Joe Biden himself ever really would have cared. But the idea that it would have been remarked upon as okay, even by people who didn't care back in the fucking 50s or 60s, that's a little bit of a stretch. I'm finding it real goddamn hard to believe that. About Biden, maybe like later in the 70s or something, yeah, I can accept that. He probably had no problem with it. I mean, why would he care? But as far as like the nifty 50s and your dad from a century ago, yes, Joe, I believe that this story is very, very accurate. You're retelling it exact. And he had like a story where it went off the rails a little bit. He had this story where I guess his mom, when she was like sick and older, had like a cottage that they built for her, and he would go and get ice cream from his mom, and this would piss his wife off. His guilty pleasure is ice cream. And this is actually sort of a meme, like that one of him eating ice cream with the sunglasses on. I will admit, it's kind of funny and charming in a weird way, but I mean, it's just, how do I open PDF? The fucking movie. I mean, this is the ultimate meme campaign. But it's not like Trump in a meme way. It's funny, but not funny in a way that helps him. Have you noticed that? Biden is definitely very meme-worthy at that point, but most of it is about how he's like feeble and old and just kind of lost it. In a funny way, yes, but he's just not quite all there. Whereas with Trump, you've got, fucking Pepe and the Trump train, stuff like that. But anyway, watching the legacy media beg a presidential candidate not to die on the campaign trail. Don't worry, Joe, you've got this. All you have to do is stay alive for the next, 8 months or something. Are you goddamn insane? Maybe you should have found a younger candidate. When the two people that are running are respectively in their late 70s and late 70s, both of which would be near octogenarians by the time they take office if they won anyway, about a year from now, almost, I think Biden would be almost 79. Bernie would, I think, literally be 80 on swearing in, not on election day. He'd be pushing it. We were having a national conversation a few years ago about the fact that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were both pushing 70. That was a national conversation. Somehow in the subsequent couple of years we decided that the best and brightest were Joe fucking Biden, of all goddamn people, and Bernie fucking fanatic ass Sanders. Both of which, again, they would turn... Bernie Sanders would hit his mid-80s while in office in his first term. There's no possibility of him seeking a second. It'd be impossible. You couldn't possibly pitch to the American people that it'd be acceptable. If Sanders wins, he would definitely be a one-termer. Joe Biden would have about a 90% chance of being a one-termer. Because he's got health issues, number one. Bernie does too, of course. He would have to resign potentially. He is demented, dude. Anyone watching that roundtable discussion, watching him go off in verbal meanderings of a totally inconsequential nature while he frequently forgets facts, including what year it is, knows this to be the case. I know it to be the case. You can't gaslight me and fool me into thinking he's not. Yeah, run Joe Biden, they said. It'll be a good time. Don't worry, he's got this in the bag against Trump. Can you imagine, in a few months, Trump is going to go on a debate stage with Joe Biden, and he is going to goddamn clobber him. And it is going to be one for the ages. I'm going to say, I don't care what time zone I'm in. I'm watching it. I'm watching it live and giving a fucking reaction, a live commentary too. And it's going to be the best goddamn thing ever. That's about all. Peace out.